Welcome to Crypt Theory, where we go over the dark, mysterious, and the unknown horrors of this world. Let's get into it. Okay, boys, today we're going into none other than the Mothman. Probably one of the more interesting ones, to say the least. I actually really liked researching on this one. It was very, very nice to look through and research. Our story. Well, let's just get into the good part. Begins Point Pleasant, small town on the banks of Ohio River. It was there, November 12th, 1966, that 5 men digging a grave in a cemetery near Clendon, West Virginia, reported seeing a man-like figure with wings flying over their heads. This was the first of many sightings. It would soon captivate the nation. So this is another thing that was nationwide and all that good stuff. It's interesting. Mothman is very well known. It's used in media a lot, or the use is of people like in superheroes and stuff. It's characterized as some guy that controls moths. That's an example, or just it's used in media a relative bunch. Not as much as your chupacabra, your yetis, and your Bigfoots, but it's still up there. 3 days later, on November 15th of 66, two young couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Maletti, driving near an old TNT plant. They encountered a large creature with red glowing eyes and a wingspan over 10 feet. So that's one hell of a wingspan. But that's interesting. Two couples saw it, so that's now 9 accounts of somebody saying they saw this. So that's a pretty big number. And being near a TNT plant is interesting. Maybe some radioactive stuff going on there. I'm not 100% sure. But that's what it sounds like to moi. Terrified, like, who wouldn't at that time? Sped away. It was the 60s. Reported their encounter to the local authorities. So, reporting their encounter to a local thing is interesting. Not a lot of police involvement usually gets in with these cases of sightings and stuff. So that is fairly interesting itself. The creature would soon to be known as Mothman. Over the next year or so, there were numerous of reports of similar sightings. Witnesses described a humanoid figure with large bat-like wings and hypnotic red eyes, often seen near the old TNT area. Which interests me a lot, and I think is really interesting to a point where it's nearly caught. This is probably one of the most interesting cases of this might actually be possible, because it's only near one area. It's not like Bigfoot or the Chupacabra, where it's been said to be located in so many different areas. It's been only really one particular area. Moving on, Point Pleasant was in a state of panic and a bunch of media attention, which you'll see with a lot of these big cases. You'll see less later down the road with like your Wendigos and stuff like that. Not as much media, and the more we go down in the depths of going into these things, a lot is going to be lower on that. Not as much media attention and more local attention on anything. We'll definitely see that later on. Um, this only added to the mass hysteria that was going on at the time, which would make sense. Local reporter Mary Heyer played a significant role in documenting these sightings, publishing articles, interviewing witnesses, helped solidify Mothman legend and folklore. So pretty much what Mary Hyrie did is she's the one that went out of her way to take these statements of the people that witnessed these and see what she could get research wise, and she published it, and it pushed it out to the media very efficiently, and that just pushed so many narratives. And what we've seen with the chupacabra and the Yeti and stuff, even Bigfoot, once media starts pushing something, a lot of people are going to say they saw things they didn't actually see, or they think they saw something which it was just a normal animal. That's where the problem goes for a lot of these things. Mothman's story took a tragic turn December 15th, 67, when the Silver Bridge, which connected Point Pleasant to Gallipolis, Ohio, collapsed during rush hour traffic. Disaster claimed 46 lives, which is tragic. Many locals began to associate the Mothman sightings with the bridge's collapse. That is an interesting thing of they're connecting that to the bridge's collapse, which I don't quite understand why they would. There were no sightings on that day of Mothman near the bridge, or supposed sightings, at least supposed sightings. So I don't understand why it's connected. I mean, it's around the general area, which would kind of make sense, but I'm not 100% sure on that. In the wake of tragedy of all that tragic stuff that happened with the 46 lives that were lost on that bridge, theories about Mothman's true nature proliferated. Some believed it was a harbinger of doom, which to an extent makes sense. At the same time, I'm not 100% sure why it would be something like that. But it does make sense. Harbinger of Doom, they associated that bridge with Mothman in some way, and that bridge collapsed during a rush hour of all times. It makes sense for the time and the events that transpired, but it's still a confusing thing. Warning of the impending disaster. Others speculated it was an alien, which 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. So that's the big time for the alien type. Late 60s, so we're pretty much, it's 67, so 66, 67. So we're going into prime alien territory, or the beginning of it at least, which is interesting. Others expected a government experiment going wrong, which is also a possibility, because at that time a lot of radioactive research was using on animals and seeing what could happen, and testing on actual humans. So that's another possibility. And then or even a supernatural being, which you never count those out, because those can be really anything, which is nice to know. The media has somewhat considers this being a supernatural being and not actually real. And that is nice to see. Nice to see. One of the more intriguing things that I see, and I saw in my research is the Mothman is its legend connection to John Keel's 1975 book, The Mothman Prophecies, where an investigative journalist delved deep into the Point Pleasant sightings and proposed that Mothman was a part of the series of a paranormal phenomenon occurring in the area, but further popularized the legend and adapted to a film. In 2002, film star Richard Gere. So again, with the media outlets and pushing it, it's not direct media, not news or anything, but it's still a book that got fairly well recognized, and it got a lot of sales. So it still pushed itself out there, which is another thing with the media, that it's pushing it in a way where it could be either confusing to people of what they're actually looking for because we don't have enough proof for what it actually is, or people saying they saw something they didn't actually see. Creature itself, the skeptics argue like Mothman sightings to be explained misidentification of animals, which is a huge thing with cryptids. It's huge. It's insanely huge. Of this is something that misidentification of animals. That is such a huge thing. It is crazy to me. The sandhill crane, a large bird with similar wingspan, red markings around its eyes. That could be a possibility. I wouldn't put it against it. But for it to be cited and not recognized as that, because that's a bird that's relatively normalized there, that flies through there fairly often in that time. So I think that would be a possibility, but if you think about it, people would know what that is. To be fair, if it was at night, it would make sense. Rational explanations really don't mean anything with cryptids, as we saw. The Mothman legend is probably one of the most well-known North American legends. It has to be up there with Bigfoot. I think Yeti is probably the most well-known around the world. Chupacabra is probably a closer second, just because of how big it is in South American culture and stuff like that. But this is for sure up there North American wise, or United States wise even. Yeah, Point Pleasant has embraced its mysterious visitor, hosting an annual Mothman Festival that draws thousands. I'm hoping to go be able to do that one year. Hosting people from around the world, which is crazy. There's also Mothman Museum, Heart of the Town, eyewitness accounts, newspaper articles, life-size statue. I love how they have a statue of it, and I think that's amazing. And it's not like it's one of those Bigfoot statues that you see in front of your local national parks gift shop. It's a true steel statue, which I think is kind of ironic of how they use steel or metal as the statue instead of like a copper or gold. In my thought process, I think it might be a callback to the bridge in 67, which is interesting. So my little ending notes here. Mothman continues to captivate all of our imaginations and see in more of it in different ways for everybody in a relative manner. It's the mystery. It could be a mystery that surrounds it, fear and fascination. That's most human instincts. Fascinated by something will go, but if we're scared of it, we might not. Sometimes fascination overkills fear. It's become intertwined with that specific place. Which I have to praise the Mothman legend for. So it's connected to that one place. It's just like the Yeti in a way where it's just connected to the Himalayan mountains. It's just connected to Mount Everest. Um, Instead of like the chupacabra that spans from all the way from Oklahoma to Puerto Rico to Chile and all of that stuff. Um, it's another symbol of the unknown. I mean, there's still things that we don't even know. We know more about space than we know our own planet. So discoveries can happen every day. Discoveries are happening every day. So it just gets more interesting and interesting as time goes on. Um, the legend of Mothman. I mean, reminded of the power of folklore and humans' need to explain the unexplainable. Um, which I think that type of bird that gives a really close description to what the people that first saw Mothman described. It's kind of concerning of how it kills it, but at the same time, you just have to believe. Yeah, the human instinct to explain the unexplainable is very concerning. Not concerning, but it it forges the truth and makes the truth into a reality. Um, Believe it or not, I mean, it's seen as a product of mass hysteria. It's probably one of the most fascinating chapters of the has to be one of the most fascinating chapters of animal or American cryptology for sure, or an American cryptid in general. But yeah. Thanks for watching. Well, thanks for listening to me ramble on about this stuff for about 20 minutes. Hope you enjoyed. Next episode, we will be going into the depths of the sea and talking about the one and only Kraken. That should be interesting, and hope you enjoyed. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell while you're down there, and I will see you in the next one.